Hey! Well, that's what I like about you. Hi there! Welcome back to this week's video edition of The Greatest Record Ever Made. I'm Carl Caffarelli, the co-host of This is Rock and Roll Radio with Dana and Carl, heard every Sunday night from 9 to midnight Eastern, right here in Syracuse on Spark, WSPJ 103.3 and 93.7 FM, and on the web at sparksyracuse.org. I'm also a writer, and I've been working on a book called The Greatest Record Ever Made, Volume 1, dedicated to the notion that an infinite number of songs can each be the greatest record ever made as long as they take turns. Next up in our video discussion of The Greatest Record Ever Made is a 1979 song by the Romantics called What I Like About You. I'm pretty sure you've heard the song. This chapter is fully written. It may or may not wind up in the book. I'm reassessing some of my choices for what's going to be covered in the book. I might make the book shorter. I might make it longer. I'm going to probably take out a few of the chapters that are even ones that are completely written and put in some that aren't because I'm my own worst enemy. I don't know. These are ongoing decisions that I have to make as I construct this book and try to make it something that flows like a reading experience, not just individual chapters. There's nothing wrong with this chapter. It's actually something that is heartfelt about how I came to the Romantics. So it may still wind up in the book. It may wind up on the outside looking in. Either way, it's going to be something that we're talking about this week. And it goes a little something like this. Have you ever bought a record you had never previously heard, performed by an act you had never previously heard of? I'm not talking about a record by a new act that includes a performer you'd experienced elsewhere, like when I recognized Paul Collins from The Nerves and scarfed up the debut LP by Collins' then new group, The Beat. Or a review you read somewhere prompting you to take a chance on the unfamiliar, like when Rolling Stone compared an act to Blondie, the Buzzcocks, and the Ramones, compelling me to purchase the debut album by the Darling Buds. No, I'm talking tabula rasa, baby. You've never heard the music. You've never heard of the band. But money changes hands anyway, and this new music is now yours. That's how I discovered the Romantics. My memory may be imprecise. I'll concede the possibility that I read about the Romantics in Bomp magazine before I bought my first Romantics record. But I'm pretty sure it was record first, right up later. I do know that I can't claim full credit for stumbling upon the record unassisted. The guy behind the counter at the record store pointed it out for me. It was in the spring of 1978. I was a freshman in college at Brockport, New York, and a budding power pop punk with a musical mania for the 1960s, British Invasion, the Monkees, the Sex Pistols, and the Ramones. I recently discovered my Syracuse hometown heroes, the Flash Cubes, and I was constantly on the prowl for more. A cool place called the Record Grove was Brockport's vinyl oasis, managed by a true believer named Bill Yerger. This was about a year or so before Bill opened his own emporium, Main Street Records, the best little record store there ever was. Bill was a huge fan of rock and pop music. He knew his stuff, and he knew how to steer kindred spirits toward the record we needed to own, even if we didn't know it yet. Although I was perpetually cash-strapped, I visited the Record Grove as often as I could and bought what I could afford when I could afford it. Bill had a small display box of import and indie 45s for sale at the counter, the box from which I'd purchased my first Ramones and Sex Pistols records during the previous semester. On this particular spring '78 visit, Bill recalled that I'd recently bought an EP by the British power pop act The Pleasers, a record I'd snapped up on impulse, drawn in by The Pleasers' overtly Beatley image and the presence of a song called Lies, not the Knickerbockers hit, I'm sorry to say. Bill asked me if I'd liked The Pleasers, and I said something like, yeah, they weren't bad, not as good as the Knickerbockers, but I like them all right. Maybe Bill already had his next move planned, or maybe it was prompted by my mention of the Knickerbockers. Either way, he said, well, if you like that, I bet you'll like this. And Bill pulled out Little White Lies, I Can't Tell You Anything. The debut single from Detroit's phenomenal pop combo, The Romantics. All right then. Just take my money, Bill. Just take it. I immediately dug both sides of this Romantics record, way more than I liked The Pleasers. Little White Lies just seemed to combust on the stereo. A pyrotechnic display of pure pop, played fast and swaggering. I Can't Tell You Anything hijacked a Bo Diddley beat to craft a basic pounder that simultaneously and incongruously evoked both the Raspberries and the Rolling Stones. Magnificence times 2, and I was duly hooked. When I finally did read about the Romantics in Bomp, the write-up referenced Can't You See That She's Mine by my Tottenham Sound lads, the Dave Clark 5. But of course. I listened to a lot of music during the summer of 1978. My parents let me move my little stereo and my growing record collection into the living room. They were away for much of that summer, so I was able to play my rock and roll platters with a bit more volume than might have otherwise been likely. I had a part-time job. I saw the Flash Cubes as often as I could, and I let the records spin freely. Kinks, Seeds, Bobby Fuller 4, The Jam, Generation X, Kiss, Herman's Hermits, Eddie and the Hot Rods, Rich Kids, Runaways, Standells, Beau Brummels, Monkees, Beatles, Ramones, Pistols, Tom Petty, Buddy Holly, Raspberries. The Pleasers, too. I did like them, just not as much as I liked the Romantics. Both sides of my Romantics 45 saw significant turntable time throughout that season. As summer surrendered its space to my sophomore year at Brockport, I saw that the Romantics were coming to Syracuse for a show with the Flash Cubes, and it would be at my favorite night spot, the Fire Barn. It would also be my first week back at school, and there was no way I would be able to see that show. The Romantics played Syracuse dates with the Flash Cubes on several occasions in this era, and the Cubes also traveled to Detroit to return the favor. But always, when I was away at school, I never did have an opportunity to see the Romantics play until decades later. I remained a fan. I bought their second single, Tell It to Carrie, First in Line, mail order from Bomp, and I scored another Romantics track called Let's Swing on the Bomp Records compilation album Waves Volume 1, an LP that also included Christy Girl by the Flash Cubes. As my third and final year in college beckoned in August of 1979, local rock station 95X started playing When I Look in Your Eyes, an advanced track from the Romantics' forthcoming major label debut. That eponymous debut featured another new track, What I Like About You. Maybe you've heard of it? It cracks me up that so many people think of the Romantics as a one-hit wonder for What I Like About You. The Romantics are so much more than one song, and that one song wasn't even their biggest hit. That would be Talking in Your Sleep, number 3 in Billboard, and One in a Million, also fared better chart-wise, number 37, than What I Like About You. In fact, What I Like About You missed the top 40 entirely, number 49. But it became a retroactive and enduring fave rave a few years after the fact, thanks to the power of a new content-hungry entity called MTV. They were all hits in my mind anyway. Sometimes, when a rock and roll act you've discovered ahead of the pack subsequently achieves mainstream success, you may feel a temptation to dismiss the more popular work, to sniff and insist that you liked them not only before they were famous, but before they, sold out, man. While it is true that, in my opinion, the Romantics' major label efforts never quite equaled the sheer punch of Little White Lies, I Can't Tell You Anything, it is also true that I've loved the Romantics' work across the span of their career. I love When I Look in Your Eyes, and What I Like About You. I dig One in a Million, and Talking in Your Sleep, and Rock You Up. Their incredible cover of the Richard and the Young Lions nugget Open Up Your Door, plus Test of Time, National Breakout, and a fantastic unreleased cover of the Spencer Davis Group's Keep on Running. Hell, I even like their 1981 hard rock album Strictly Personal, In the Nighttime. It just kicks, man. And virtually nobody likes that record except me and Flash Cubes guitarist Paul Armstrong. After years and years of missed opportunities, I finally saw the Romantics at an outdoor sports bar show in the mid-90s. Yeah, I would have preferred to see them at the Fire Barn, but it was still a thrill. They opened with an authoritative cover of the Pretty Things' Midnight to Six Man, and I'm sure you can guess what song closed the show. I don't believe that I will ever tire of hearing What I Like About You. Nor will I tire of the lesser-known gems to be found throughout the Romantics' stellar CV. More than 40 years ago, my friend Bill Yerger introduced me to the music of the Romantics, and they were but one of many pop treasures Bill nudged me toward. Bill Yerger passed away in the late 90s. Bill, if you can read this across the veil that separates our world from yours, let me tell you, the inspiration you provided drives me to this day. Oh, and the group's signature tune, What I Like About You, rocks. Its transcendent pop brilliance still undimmed by subsequent corporate machinations and unctuous 80s nostalgia-mongering overkill. Some songs are just good enough to survive even the worst that the music biz has to offer. There's a lot to like about that. Hey! I like the Romantics. There's a lot to like about the Romantics. If I've missed any of their records, I don't know about it. And I'll have it before soon. Because you need them all. Great band, great songs, great stuff to play on the radio and at home. That's what I like about them. Thank you for joining us this week for the greatest record ever made. Next week, I'm not sure. I've got a couple things I might do. I might go sequentially to the next track in the book, which is probably Melanie, lay down Candles in the Rain, or I might skip around a little bit. I take my own infinite turns too. Below, you'll see options to support and subscribe and to tip. And like that. Thank you for joining us on The Greatest Record Ever Made.